Right. My handy dandy little cell phone tells me that it is 4:03 p.m. So we'll go ahead and get started. And anybody who wants to join in, who's still coming, can obviously join in as we go ahead and do that and get started. Let me start by welcoming everybody. My name is Brett Schanzenbach, and I am the president and CEO of the Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce. And I have a very easy job today. I just get to introduce the chair of our Ready Carlsbad Business Alliance. And then I get to kind of step out of the way and allow others to do their thing. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. David Harrison. David is the Assistant Director of Emergency Services for the City of Carlsbad and a longtime collaborator with the Chamber of Commerce through our Ready Carlsbad Business Alliance. And we're very fortunate to have his engagement with us over the years, and we're fortunate to have him as an asset here in Carlsbad. So I am going to turn it over to David and let him take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Brett. Since you went over my background, I'll skip that and proceed right into thanking the Chamber of Commerce, you as President and CEO, and your staff for hosting today's event and making it all possible. And of course, the Chamber's support for the Ready Carlsbad Business Alliance goes back many years, greater than 10 years now, and has contributed to today's topic practically, meaning in real tangible ways. And we're going to talk about those in just a few minutes. So thank you in advance for that. The Ready Carlsbad Business Alliance is both a chamber committee and a relationship between the chamber, the city of Carlsbad, and local businesses. The mission of the Ready Carlsbad Business Alliance, or RCBA, is to promote business emergency preparedness, continuity of operations, and community recovery. This community recovery is a component of resilience at the local government organizational level. And today's focus is going to be down at a more of an individual workplace level, but this concept of resilience extends through organizational hierarchy. And Ready Carlsbad provides services, educational programs, and cooperative partnerships, and has been doing for over 10 years now. It has held about 25 symposiums in its history, all focused on community preparedness, which is also a topic close to today's discussion on resiliency. Ready Carlsbad joined the Chamber's Education Committee, which is 501c3, in 2012 to establish a foundation for community recovery donations management. It being Ready Carlsbad, has materially contributed to community and business recovery, first after the 2014 Poinsettia fire, and again during the current COVID-19 pandemic. Thanks again to the Chamber and President Brett. Resilience is an innovative and still emerging concept. And we recognize that there are many contending definitions across the organizational levels, from large organizations down to small organizations and even the individual level. Resiliency applies at all levels of this hierarchy, at large-scale government organizations, large-scale private organizations, medium and smaller scale organizational structures and businesses, and down to the single individual level, and the individual working in the workplace environment as well. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, it has defined resiliency. It's a concept that's tried to operationalize over the years as a culture of preparedness. And really the emphasis here is on the word culture, which implies a broad expanse of characteristics. And we're going to talk about some of that today as we expand this discussion of resilience at the individual and workplace level. But as I mentioned today, we're not so much here to discuss organizational resiliency at the higher levels, but the equally important and perhaps less frequently discussed topic of resiliency of the individual and individual in the workplace. And we have subject matter experts to do that today. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sara Gilman and Ms. Lela Panagides. And I'd like to provide short bios on both by way of introduction. Dr. Sara Gilman is the co-founder of Coherence Associates Inc, whose mission is providing the best possible treatment for clients within a collaborative professional team environment. As clinical director, she provides guidance and 30 years of experience to her team of clinical associates. Dr. Gilman is a licensed marriage therapy and family therapist and a former firefighter emergency medical technician. She is certified in critical incident stress management and is an athlete. Sara also works with athletes, including those at the Olympic level, performers, and business professionals. Her work improves the consistency of peak performance and strengthens mental toughness, the perfect background and experience to today's mental resiliency discussion. She has earned both a Master of Science and a Doctor of Clinical Psychology. Also with us today is Ms. Lela Panagides. She is a business owner, the president and founder of Leap into Leadership, a community leader, a working mom, and an active volunteer. Her work is focused on enhancing quality of life and creating the best outcomes for our future, which clearly ties her experience and expertise to today's discussion of resilience. Over the last 23 years, Lela has held senior leadership positions at some of the world's top global companies and nonprofit and community organizations, including PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, Johnson Controls, and Microsoft, and others. Her experience is focused on many areas relevant to today's discussion of resiliency, including adapting to changing conditions, collaboration and networking to innovate and grow, as well as human resource management, organizational development, and strategic planning and operations. Lela is also generously provides pro bono work for nonprofit and community organizations, which I failed to mention, but I know Sara does as well. Lela is the board president of Friends of La Posada, and that organization provides assistance to those who are unsheltered in Carlsbad and North County, San Diego. Lela earned her undergraduate degree from the University of Virginia and her master's degree from Indiana University's Kelley School of Business, where she is also elected as the president of Women in Business and started a mentoring program for high school girls. She participated as a William Davidson Institute Fellow at the University of Michigan Ross School of Business. So with that, I wanted to say thank you to both Sara and Lela and turn the floor over to you for today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David, and welcome everyone. Thank you first for taking time to be with us today. And thank you to the RCBA and the Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce for really hosting this timely and important session. Dr. Gilman and I hope that you come away from this next hour with practical tools that you can implement in your lives starting today that will start you on your path to increasing personal resilience. Now, a few weeks ago, I was doing some research to find out some current data on where are organizations regarding workforce productivity and what has been the impact of the pandemic of COVID on outcomes. And I came across Cigna's 2020 Resilience Index report. And what stood out to me was not only that the impact the pandemic was having on psychological and mental health across the board, but the broader economic and business impacts in the workplace as a result of deterioration of resilience. And this is a quote from the report that highlights some of that negative impacts of the pandemic in the workplace. Next. So when the pandemic began, business leaders went into emergency response mode. And David talked about preparedness. And we saw a spike in activity, such as moving toward telework, stabilizing supply chains, and prioritizing business continuity. There wasn't much of a focus by business leaders in the beginning on psychological impact of the pandemic, as well as the well-being of employees, especially because there wasn't a lot of certainty around how long the pandemic would last. Now, we know that the events of the last year have increased levels of stress, depression, and anxiety in the general population. And the Cigna Resilience Survey that I just mentioned found that resilience is at risk in 3 in 5 Americans today, and that 60% of employees said they had not talked to anyone at work about their mental health in the past year. Now, there is consensus in the business community that the need to address mental health and well-being in the workplace has never been greater than it is today. And the good news coming out of this is that this has historically been something that's a taboo subject in the workplace, talking about mental health. But it's now front and center, and leaders, starting from the CEO down to the very front level employees, are openly talking about this authentically, courageously, and effectively. And the companies that are seeing the highest level of engagement and productivity are those that are implementing company-wide mental health initiatives. So the broader question really is, what are business leaders doing to help employees as we emerge from the pandemic into this recovery and renewal stage? And today's focus is on what steps you can take as an individual to establish a strong foundation of mental health so that you can be prepared, you can remain productive, resilient now and into the future. So we'd first like to start with a check-in poll question to see where you're at right now. Next. So Kathy's going to bring up a poll question, and it's this: as you look back on the past year in managing and enduring this pandemic, what would you say are some of your greatest mental and emotional challenges? And you still have some options here. So just choose what you think are your top challenges. Are you
having a little technical difficulties here? Brett, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm on. Yes.
Can you hit the poll? When you logged in, you took that away from me. So
Oh, I
if you
did.
poll, yeah, just hit the poll, please. And
Okay.
Oh, I see. Hit poll.
sorry,
Should I hit relaunch poll or is
relaunch
it up
poll.
now?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, there we go.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Plenty of time. So we'll just give you a minute to look at the choices there and go ahead and choose which ones are your top ones. And certainly more than one may apply. Okay, about another 30 seconds. Okay, and let's end the poll and see what our results are. So isolation came up as 58% of you reported isolation, which makes sense since we're all in our homes. Anxiety also ranked very high at 50%. Depression, sleeplessness, and decreased energy. So thank you for sharing your feedback. This is anonymous, so we don't record any names, but we appreciate this feedback. And this is what Sarah and I have been hearing in other sessions as well and with our clients. So it's very-
You're not alone.
You are not alone. Yes, yes, echoes very much. Okay. Next slide. So we know that the world has changed quite dramatically, quite quickly. And as human beings, we're constantly scanning for threats in our environment. And psychologists know that panic, depression, and anxiety can grow when we focus on those negative thoughts, when we focus on the threat, and we also underestimate our ability to cope with it. Next. And one of the impacts on our brain of having to confront so much change in a short period of time is this concept of continuous partial attention, or in other ways, we can call it as brain noise. Next. And brain noise includes all those things that we have rattling around in our heads that really prevents us from giving quality and focused attention to our highest priorities. And it impacts our overall well-being and our productivity. And what we really require is a way to quiet down the noise, get some peace, and build resilience. Next. Now, resilience simply is your ability when you're faced with adversity to use the skills and the resources around you to overcome challenges you're up against. Simply stated, it's being able to handle what life throws your way. Next. So it's commonly defined as your ability to quickly recover from challenges, that you can bounce back. Next. So we developed this session to come up with something called a brain booster. And we have two powerful science-backed brain boosters. And Sarah's going to go through the first brain booster, which we're calling a tool, to help you build resilience. So Dr. Gilman, who likes to be called Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you to walk through the first brain booster.
Okay, so let me just be very transparent. I liked Dr. Gilman once. Okay, I still like it because I went back to school in my late 50s to get this thing. So one time's good. Thank you so much, Lela. We can go to the next slide. You know, our workplace, our resilience in the workplace is really only as resilient and strong as the individuals there. And as David mentioned, it's probably the most important priority is your personal resilience, because that's what you bring to work. You know, one of the things I miss about being, together physically and in person is that I could see your faces and your reactions and whether you're really doing the exercises we guide you through. So I'm going to have to trust everyone that you're going to walk through these with us and give us some feedback about what they can do for you. But one of the things I want to explain why. To me, I really like to understand something before I can really incorporate it into my routines. We talk a lot about being in the flow or in the zone. And heart rate variability is not the beat itself, but the space between the beats. Now we're calling these exercises today brain boosters, but where it gets boosted from is the heart muscle, is the heart variability, how it's the range in the heart rate variability is moving around. Because the heart sends the message to the brain, are we in danger, fight or flight? Or are we going to be focused and in the flow and things feel effortless? Now, our resilience gets challenged and we measure it by how we bounce back. But that's usually because we've been in a stressful situation that usually only lasts a short period of time. We have been in a stressful life experience for coming up on a year, literally. So happy anniversary, everybody. And we really haven't had a lot of the skills and tools to catch up with ourselves and the amount of stress that's happened and having to deal with it. You know, it's this constant dealing with it. There's really not been much break. So when we talk about heart-focused breathing, this is an evidence-based resilience stress management tools that have been tested and researched for the last 25 years. Okay, next. So the heart rhythms, as I just said, really influence our brain's ability to function. Well, as the poll indicated, we are being challenged to function because we're depleted. The hacks that we're going to share with you today are restorative and really need to be done every day to restore your system and to restore the depletion. If you don't restore yourself, you're not going to be filled up by accident. You have to help yourself. So our ability to think clearly and make good decisions has to do with this heart rate variability. And it's called a coherent pattern, heart rate coherence. It brings blood flow to the frontal executive function of our brain, which is really like our CEO. Now, many of you on this call are probably business owners, and your CEO that's inside is probably pretty exhausted. And memory gets challenged when we're under chronic stress. And this on the left, the incoherent pattern, it's not a bad pattern. It is a normal signal that the heart rate is giving to the system and to the brain to signal it to do something important to save you. The coherent pattern, you see it smoothing out the space between the beats. That sends the message to the brain that I'm safe, I'm focused, and I've got blood flow and all is right with the world. If we were all together, I'd have some of you share, when have you been in the zone and how do you know you're there? What I often hear are words like, it's effortless. I'm not distracted. I've got an ability to focus. It's a calm energy. Now, working with elite athletes for the last 20-something years, an elite athlete can be in full expression of their sport and still be in heart rate coherence. This isn't about a calm meditation. This is about a evenness in the heart rhythm. Next. And a lot of this research comes out of a company called HeartMath. And you can look it up online, heartmath.com. And these are the techniques that I'm going to be sharing with you today. Mental toughness is about resiliency, but we often leave out how do we strengthen our toughness, and it's through the heart muscle, okay? The HeartMath techniques, even though they incorporate a breathing component to it, there's actually one part of it that's more important than all the others, and that's generating a positive feeling. Remember decades ago, see, I can't see everybody, so I don't know how old everybody is, but some of us are older than others. Remember Norman Vincent Peale would say, you know, think positive thoughts before you go to bed, or write down 10 things that you're grateful for. And then Oprah, you know, got into that. And actually they were on the right track, because when we have even the smallest of sense of gratitude, felt sense, not the thought, but the felt sense, our heart rate variability starts to change into that rhythmic pattern called heart rate coherence. So it's the ability to shift your emotion from anger, irritability, sadness, to a more positive sense of either gratitude, joy, or happiness. Go ahead. And this is what it looks like. If you were in my office or we were together in a big room, I'd hook somebody up to what's called the inner balance. It's a Bluetooth device. It goes on the earlobe, which it measures the heart rate. And we would be able to see, are you in an incoherent pattern, which is kind of an irritated, frustrated pattern, which signals the system, I'm tired, I'm depleted, I'm irritable. And we want to pay attention to that signal. That's an important signal. Or are you in a coherent pattern where you're in a pretty good mood, you've got some good focus going on, and you feel restored and rested, but yet energetic at the same time? And so you'd be able to see when you do these exercises what your heart rhythm is. Go ahead. So there's just 3 steps. And everyone is pinky swear, you're all going to do this, okay? Because it will make a difference. So it's very simple. I'll talk you through it and then we'll walk through it together. It's heart focus. We're all athletes in our own way. We're all performers at our jobs. Okay, so we shift our attention to the area and the muscle that we're working on, because that sends more energy. Okay, someone said in the chat, pinky swear, thank you. Heart focus. So drop your attention to the center of your chest in your heart area. Just shift your attention. And notice the rise and fall of your chest as you're breathing normally right now. That's a heart focus. And then breathe in and out and around your heart right now. Maybe a little slower and deeper than usual. It can be eyes open, eyes closed, whatever you're comfortable with. Heart focus, heart breath. Just notice whatever you notice. Sometimes it might feel a little tight there. Often people tell me, I don't even think I was breathing. In and around your heart area, a little slower and deeper than usual. Now, the third step is actually the most important. Generate a positive heartfelt emotion. Today, we're going to focus on gratitude because that's going to link up to our next brain booster. Even if you're totally stressed out, you can think of one thing that you might be grateful for. Just a little thing. It could just be that you made it here today. And again, if I could really see you up close, when you have a heartfelt feeling of gratitude, you can't help but your kind of mouth starts to smile a little bit. If you feel that, then you know you have the physiological felt sense of this positive feeling of gratitude. And if you can't get a positive feeling right now, smile and then see if you can do it. So sometimes we can physically do it before we feel it. Heart focus, heart breath, and a positive heartfelt feeling. Now you're going to keep doing this, and I'm going to watch the clock for 60 seconds. So that was about 60 seconds. I hope nobody was checking. That's not very long, is it? Now do a full body scan, head to toe. Just check in with yourself. What do you notice? Anything different? You feel the same? Did your shoulders drop a little bit? Are you smiling a little bit more than you did a few minutes ago? Couldn't help but smile. Somebody said, calmer. Definitely smiled. I smiled when I saw people say pinky swear. You know, one of the things that has thrown all of us into a consistent pattern of incoherence, that jagged, irritated pattern, is the disconnect that we have from one another, the isolation that came up in the poll. Go ahead, next slide. And the fix used to be when we could interact with one another. We've had to accommodate this Zoom life of ours. And one of the things that's happening to the brain in doing this is it is still, our DNA is programmed to see facial expressions and log it and give meaning to it. Body movements, we log it because it's in our DNA and we give meaning to it. Because we've been disjointed and we're not seeing it, and there's auditory and these delays going on, our brain is still searching for what it knows is supposed to be there. And that's why you're exhausted, because it can't find it the way our DNA describes it in our blueprint. And I don't know if that's interesting to you, but that made me feel better. It's like, why am I so tired after a whole day on telehealth? It's because we're working really hard. So these brain boosters, one of the things I like to remind people, link it to something you're already doing. You get in the car. Well, I don't know who's getting in the car. My husband says I get 3 weeks to the gallon now. But if you get in the car and you put your hands on the steering wheel and you heart focus, heart breath, and begin to breathe, and you look out to nature, 30 seconds. You have just now started resetting this cardiac muscle, it's a muscle, into the coherent, resilient pattern. Now, if it's a muscle and we're trying to get back in resilient shape, then you need to work it. 30 seconds to a minute, you can do it. When you get up in the morning, you go to brush your teeth. Heart focus, heart breath, and just do some breathing and smile. Okay, so linking it to something you're already doing is going to make it easy. When you make a transition from a meeting, heart focus, heart breath, and think of something positive, and then drop into your heart. It will change the course of what your heart is communicating to the brain. The heart sends 60 times the electrical voltage to the brain than the other way around. So who's in charge? Right here. And now Lela's going to expand on this with another brain booster.
Thank you, Sara, not Dr. Gilman. Thank you, Sara. When Sara and I first got together, because we're members of the RCBA committee, talking about this session, we really came to a meeting of the minds and heart, because we both shared what we would bring in terms of our experience, our background, and these tools. And we found them extremely complementary. I mean, they're really basic building blocks that together are very powerful antidotes, and also very powerful in terms of building personal resilience. Now, next slide. Many of you probably have already heard of mindfulness meditation. This is something that John Kabat-Zinn, he's one of the pioneers in mindfulness meditation, defines as this: just simply the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So when Sara was talking about getting in the car and just the heart focus, the breathing. In the last few decades, neuroscientists have wanted to see the actual science behind this, to see if there are impacts of mindfulness meditation on the brain. And behold, they have. Next slide. So this is the brain before and after meditation. And we were talking about exercise. If you're working out with hand weights, you can see the changes in your biceps. You can see the changes in your musculature. But if you're doing mental exercises, if you're doing the heart rate coherence or mindful meditation, you can't really see that unless you go get an fMRI study. And then you can see that. Now, what's interesting is a lot of research has been done on Buddhist monks who spend hours meditating. And so we know that the science in the brain is very strong to show that there is a remarkable ability to quiet that brain noise, to make you focus and to relax and to find your center and to find that resilience when life is just throwing one thing after another at you, that you're feeling overwhelmed, that you're feeling that you can't handle one more thing on your plate. So these are tools that we know work. I introduced this 10 years ago to a senior leadership team at Microsoft. And I will tell you today, some of those leaders are continuing to use this and are benefiting in terms of leadership capacity, being able to handle more and more demands at work, going through the pandemic. I can't even imagine what leaders all throughout the industries, not just in the United States, but across the world, even political leaders that are having to keep day after day focused, paying attention and caring about their employees and their organizations. Next slide. So what happens when you have a practice, a consistent practice? There are a lot of benefits, and these have been well documented, again, very well researched, so we know that this works. Next slide. Now, one more thing to add, and Sara talked about this, is that gratitude piece. And this has become very mainstream. There are lots of apps, there's lots of journals out there. But the reason that we're talking about it now more and more at organizations is because it works. So there are 4 outcomes of gratitude in terms of psychological health and wellness, and also in terms of feeling of well-being. And the second point here, gratitude helps even if you don't share it. There's a very good study by Dr. Joshua Brown and Dr. Joel Wong, who talks about writing a gratitude letter, something simply as I'm going to tell someone that I'm grateful, and I'm not, or email. But just the fact that you wrote the email or the letter, and it's probably better to write it by hand because you get more of your physicality in it. You don't even have to send the letter to get the benefits, the psychological benefits of that wellness in terms of expressing to someone your gratitude for them being in your life. Next. So the exercise to build on what Sara talked about, the Brain Booster 1, is simply to add this second one. And that can be before you go to bed at night, or anytime that you can find a few minutes a day where you have some solitary surroundings, where you go into your heart rate coherence and you focus on something that you're grateful for. And it can be as small as the smell of jasmine growing along your fence line, or it can be profound as someone telling you that they love you. But the important thing is to focus on that for at least 1 minute. You can put a timer on your phone, on your cell phone, to a maximum of 5 minutes a day. And you do that consistently. It is more powerful after 4 weeks, and then you double that capacity even after 12 weeks. So we are going to ask that you do it at least for 30 days before you give up, and see if you notice any changes. So next slide. So the Brain Booster, the heart rate coherence, along with the mindfulness meditation and the gratitude, is a powerful set of tools. They don't cost money. There's something you can start today and you can do every day. You can agendize it. You can put it in your calendar so that you're making sure that you are consistently practicing, so you're building that muscle. So here's our challenge to you. Next slide. We're giving you the 30-day challenge. And that is practicing these two habits for the next 30 days, the heart rate coherence technique and the mindfulness gratitude at bedtime or sometime during the day. You have a handout that Kathy sent out to everybody, so you can use that as a tool. There's some space in there. You can write it down or track that you're doing it every day. If you miss a day, don't worry. It's not the end of the world. Just do it as soon as you remember. And you are going to start to see these benefits: improved sleep. You're going to have better energy. You're going to have your balanced emotions, increased focus. And you think this is magic. Well, it's not magic. The brain is actually starting to rewire. And so you're building new neurons that fire together, wire together. You might have heard of that. So you're actually building new habits in your brain that are going to make you more resilient and have a capacity to handle what life throws at you. Next slide. So Sara and I are both offering some feedback. So after 30 days, so you can mark your calendar now on March 25th, reach out to us, email us, and let us know what worked. What tool did you find most helpful? Did you notice any impact by doing these consistently every day for 30 days? And we'd love to hear from you, because we know in our practice that this works. We want to know that you're benefiting from it as well. So please reach out to us, send us an email and say, hey, this is working, I'm loving it. And then spread the news, spread it to your friends, your family, because it's really important when all of us are sharing best practices and sharing what works for us. It makes the community more resilient.
I want to toss a couple things in here, Lela, since it looks like we have a little bit of time, and answer a question that comes up a lot. You know, some people say, but the reason this is so important right now, I mean, this is important all the time, but right now, after the year we've had and looking forward, we have created a neurobiological response under this chronic stress of an irritated system, a stressed out system, because we haven't had much relief. And the sense of uncertainty in every aspect of our lives and the constant changing has created this default to that incoherent pattern, because it's stressed, right? It's more important. You don't want to have the habit now ingrained of a stress response, cortisol, adrenaline. We're going to see medical issues, stomach aches, headaches, you know, we're already seeing this. So already, you know, it's been like a year, but so that I can't say how important this is moving forward, because if you don't do something, you are not going to recover as well as you can. Okay. Resilience is built. It's not a gift. Now we have been knocked down, we get up, we get knocked down, we get up, we're going back to the office, we're not going back to the office, we're not wearing masks, we're not wearing masks, you know. And if we could raise hands, but we can't. So I bet there's some people on this call that have kids at home. So let me give you a little brain hack, a kid hack. And so it's bedtime, or it's 3 hours of Zoom, come over, sit down, but do a coherence break first. Teach the kids how to meditate. Just don't call it that, because they don't know what they're doing, right? At night, or even before they get onto Zoom and doing whatever they have to do, you can put a toy, they can lay on the floor, lay on their bed, on their chest, and have them breathe into their favorite little toy and make it go up and down. And you're sitting there going, good job. You want it to go slower, or do you want it to go faster? You want it to go slower. And you play with them, knowing that you're helping them by just being with them and smiling while they're doing this. And now you've helped them get into heart rate coherence. Okay. If you meditate and you sit quietly and you think of something you're grateful for, have them think of their favorite ice cream. They'll smile. They'll breathe, they'll quiet down. Of course, they'll make you promise to get it for later if they do their Zoom work. So there are things you can do that you're doing it, but you're helping them do it. And it becomes actually part of the daily curriculum, if you will, or the bedtime routine. Okay, so help your kids think of this as just something we do. And maybe you can think of this as just something you do every single day.
Fantastic. Okay, so I think we're going to move into some Q&A now. So next slide.
And as the questions are coming in, I want to answer a question that I get a lot. And that is, how do I think of something positive when I'm grieving? This has been a year of a lot of grieving. And that's a really good question. How do I do that? Well, first, still guide them or guide yourself to the chest area and to the heart and start the breathing. If they're grieving a significant loss, see if they can think about, or if you can think about, some value you experience that you'll always carry with you with that person that maybe they lost. You know, at this point, none of us aren't connected to somebody who has passed with COVID. I mean, the numbers are just too big. And so we're all grieving. And so we can be cognizant that grief is natural and we have to go through it, but you can't hold your breath and move through it. You have to breathe through it, even when it hurts.
Next slide. Thank you, Sarah. So we'll stop here. We have about 15 minutes, so it's good for some questions and hopefully we have some answers. So if you want to write something in the chat or you want to unmute or raise your hand, we'll be happy to answer your questions. So.
And also if somebody wants to share an experience of maybe something that has worked or something they're still challenged with. So I see a question about any research or comments on length of meditation. You know, it depends on your purpose. In some cases in life, more is better. Meditation's one of them, okay? And there's research in transcendental meditation. Their recommendation for creating new pathways is 20 minutes twice a day. That's been kind of a traditional amount of time. But I would say if you've never done breathing exercises or meditation before, there's some great apps out that will guide you. You don't have to just sit there by yourself. Calm app, Headspace, Heart Math has some great stuff. But the reason I did the breathing exercise for 1 minute is because it's a minute. You can do a minute. And maybe you'll do 2. And maybe you'll do 3. If you did 5 minutes twice a day of breathing and meditation, you will notice over the next 30 days a significant change in you. And guess what? Somebody in your household might notice the change too.
Yeah. And I would just add consistency is important, just like with anything, with eating healthy or exercising. And again, you don't have to be perfect. We're not striving for perfection, but just getting into a consistent habit. I would say probably 100% of you brush your teeth every night before you go to bed, and maybe 90% of you floss before you brush your teeth, right? Those are habits that you've started early in life. And I love what Sarah said about your children. If you have children, get them started early in life by building this resilience that they'll have for the rest of their lifetimes.
Somebody mentioned the 15 minutes. The reason 15 minutes has come up is one of the things that we notice in exercise physiology. Anybody exercise and it's like you start out running or biking or swimming, whatever you're doing, or even walking, and it's like, oh, in about 10 to 15 minutes, the system kind of sits in and gets in the flow and it becomes a little easier. So there is this window of 10 to 15 minutes where the brain stops resisting the stress and your system starts to settle down because it knows you're going to sit here until you're done, and it stops resisting. So 15 to 20 minutes is a really good plan. But you know what? You're going to get frustrated if you try to start at 15 to 20 minutes if you've never done it. And you'll get interrupted if you have kids at home.
Yeah. Sarah, there's a question here about the neutral tool and QCT.
Quick coherence technique. Okay. That's in the handout. You guys are probably looking at the handout. Heartmath.com has all this on it. The difference in the neutral tool and quick coherence technique is simply neutral does not add the positive felt sense. It is a neutral tool where you stop you take a breath and you pause. Okay. It's kind of like when I go through the car wash and I put the car in neutral. I can't do anything. It's a pause. Before you send that email that might be strong, do a pause, okay? If you want to get in and restore your energy and your focus, take a little bit more time and add the heartfelt positive sense feeling. That'll get you into heart rate coherence. The pause technique is simply, the neutral technique just slows it down and gives you a pause, okay? Did that help? I hope.
Yeah, any other questions? Anybody want to share some tools that, do we need to complement physical exercise with meditation? Well, I think Sarah and I would both think that exercise is important. Gets the blood going. It really is a positive contributor to overall health. And it doesn't have to be rigorous. Again, consistency is important, whether you're doing yoga or Pilates or spin bike or walking. Yeah, exactly. Just a lot of the long-term studies, I don't know if you've heard of the Blue Zone, these are studies that have been done over decades, and they've shown that just even walking every day, some type of physical exercise is important. And again, it doesn't have to be high intensity, just regular exercise.
There's some additional research that's come out in the last few years about dementia and Alzheimer's and aging. And there's much less suffering with those disorders. I mean, we're all going to age, we're going to get stuff, but much less with people who consistently exercise. There's also some significant research about being outside. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what you're doing, just step out the door. I think for a lot of us, I know for me, I didn't even realize, this working from home, oh, that's cool. I don't have to drive and I only have to half dress. But you get zeroed in and you don't take breaks, and all of a sudden you've been in this cave going, and you've got to step outside, even in the rain.
We're very fortunate to live near the ocean. There's a book called The Blue Mind, which is research around cultures that are on, near, or by water. People who tend to be healthier because of the ions coming off of the ocean. So it's really great that we live near an ocean within driving distance. Go walk on the beach. You always feel better after you come back from the beach.
Oh, thank you to David, who talked about in the chat. What about soft music? Is that a separate technique or can it be blended? Always blend music if you can. There is a difference when you want to be really, really silent. But music activates parts of the brain that put us in a state of calm and can activate gratitude. There's a whole nother training we could do on the vagal nerve, the vagus nerve, that it's the longest nerve in the body, and it branches out and affects all the major organs. And I will give you a couple of hacks, and we'll do another hack course soon, is cold water. Now we're washing our hands a lot, cold water. Splash your face with cold water. It activates the vagus nerve, which kicks up that parasympathetic system, which is our balancing system to the fight or flight or stress response. Now, we have been suppressed in our parasympathetic this year because the stress has been more than we can, do this balancing thing. So all of these little hacks make a huge difference. And activating the vagus nerve through music actually activates the vagus nerve. And exercise and cold water. Now, the other recommendation for that, so we're giving a third hack, Lela. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
You're giving away a lot here.
Is when you're in the shower, you like those warm showers, but towards the end, start cranking it cooler. I'm not telling you to freeze yourself, but the colder, the better. Now you've activated your entire system and all your major organs, and the parasympathetic system will give you focus and energy and calm and restore the system, as opposed to, the hot water is really great, but it actually causes some additional inflammation and some of those kinds of things. So in 30 days, I want to hear who took a really cold shower, just at the end.
And if you're prone to headaches, put an ice pack on the back of your head, right at the base of your head where it meets the neck, and your headache will be reduced significantly.
Do you remember the old movies when somebody's like freaking out and the bucket of cold water they throw in their face? Well, that was why.
Or the pie.
Or the pie.
Any other questions? Anybody want to share something or feel that they want to speak or say anything? It was much more like a webinar than an interactive, but if you want to unmute, feel free to do so.
I'll say something. One of my favorite YouTube presentations ever was by a guy named Sean Acor, and he has a book, and his whole talk was on the happiness advantage. And his whole focus is on how your brain and your productivity is so much higher when you're in a positive mindset than when you're at neutral or a negative mindset. And so his little hacks were very similar to what you guys shared today. And I heard these from him, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, but little bit of meditation every day, whatever that means, to you or how it works best for you. Exercise, some kind, simple, like you guys said, could be just going for a walk or could be more rigorous. Grateful journal, where you journal 3 things you're grateful for every day, from the super simple to the more profound, like you guys shared. And then I think his 4th was to do something intentionally, positive for somebody each day, like send an affirming email or say an affirming word to somebody, a coworker or a family member or whatever. And he just goes through the whole thing about how that rewires your brain the way you were talking about, Lela. And then if you do it for 30 days, like you are operating at such a different level of production and everything. So it just fit with everything you were saying today. So I just really appreciate what you guys shared.
Yeah, thank you, Brett. I think if we're quick to criticize and to complain, but not so much to say thank you or to say good job. And so I'm a parent, and going back to raising my son who's now 15, I came across this parenting technique called love or logic. And it was about reinforcing behavior in people by saying, oh, good job, keep doing that, rather than saying, oh, well, you're always late, you're lazy. And so if you can use the affirming language, it will incentivize people to keep doing the things they're doing right, rather than always just picking out what people do wrong. And that happens in the workplaces as well, in performance reviews, very common. So thanks for sharing that, Brett. Someone asked about our favorite apps.
I've been tossing some in.
Yeah. One of mine is WhatsApp. I have friends and family around the world, and so we've created these WhatsApp groups so we can communicate. And I have a girlfriend group of my 5 best buddies, and we text very frequently, a couple times a week, just checking in. And that social connectivity, we didn't talk about that much in this hack, but that's also a very important part to longevity and overall health, is having someone who has your back and knowing that there's someone you can go to in your life. You only need one person, that one person who has your back, that that you can be at your absolute worst, do your ugly cry. These are the people that show up to bury the body with you. You just have to have that one person in your life that you can go to when really times are tough and you've gotten on your knees. So reach out to friends, reach out to family, check in with people, especially people who are living alone, and see how they're doing. That's really important too.
I have a favorite one that emerged through the pandemic. If you've heard of Marco Polo. Now, I put on the chat a bunch of meditation apps that I like, but Marco Polo is this video. It's a crack up. Remember when you were kids, Marco Polo in the pool? So you just turn on the app and you have certain friends. I only do this with, like you said, Lela, some super close friends that just has known me for decades. And so you could just talk to them. You're like, and they're not there, but it's a video. And then they pick it up when they can, because they're out of state and the times are different. And then they send one back when they can. And it's been amazing. It's been funny. We call it the Closet Chronicles, because we usually have to be in our closets to get a moment. It's like, or the, driving chronicles or whatever. Yeah, I've done Marco Polo while I'm driving, but I don't have to use my hands. So, but again, it's that social connectivity. You can see their expressions and they're in their home. And that has been really a godsend for this small group of women friends that we've experienced as Marco Polo over time.
Yeah, I think in closing, I'll just say be empathetic with yourself first. Have compassion for yourself. Be empathetic for yourself, with yourself. Having self-love is important. So just know we're all struggling, and we're not any different from anybody else. Social media is horrible because people are always projecting their best selves on Facebook, so don't believe it. And just know that we're all human beings first, and just be empathetic, and that's really what it's about, relationships. So, okay, well, we're right at the hour. Namaste. Thank
Namaste,
you.
someone just
Namaste.
said.
Yes. So you have our email addresses, you have our handout. We hope to hear from you in 30 days. We'll be looking in our email boxes. I'll be checking spam folder too, to see how you're doing with your brain boosters. We wish you the best. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's coming very quickly, and it's not a train. So we are almost out of this. And thank you to everybody. And thank you again to RCBA and the Chamber for hosting this session.
And if
I
I
did
might
wanna
say
say-
the same, I just wanted to express my three thank yous. And certainly that's to our community and to Brett and the relationship with the Chamber, and to you, Lela and Sara, for today's sharing your wisdom with today's session. So thank you very much.
And one quick thing, because somebody mentioned this, there are a lot of people that have significant depression and anxiety right now, and it is very, very tough. And there are so many counseling options open now with telehealth and opportunities. So don't wait to reach out, or encourage others to reach out to get that support. The professional support that some people will really benefit from, and families as well. And, for all of us mental health professionals, we are getting double vaccinated and working our way back to the office slowly but surely. But right now, most everyone's still telehealth. So don't hesitate to reach out.
We're here for you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you everybody for participating. Thank you, David, and Dr. Sara and Lela especially. Thank you guys for joining us. And we do have this recorded. We're going to post it on our website so you can come back or share it with other folks who didn't get to join us today. So thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Get outside.
Yes.